So, hello, future people, including Sunny and other people as well.
Hi.
She's here. She can say hi right there.
Hi.
That's her. She's on the TV too. We're in the fishbowl today. And today we are talking about time clock approval and the process that it takes and the different elements. We'll probably do a little bit of stopping here and there, as this is going to be a bit of a fluid training session with a couple things we have going on today. But let's go ahead and dive a little bit into approving time clocks for Gusto.
One thing that I want to be clear is that if we're doing it on the Monday of the pay week, you want to make sure that you always have the previous week, right?
Yeah, so it's actually one thing that's very nice about Gusto is that it auto-populates the current ready to review and sync function of as us being time clock approval, saying, hey, this is the current pay period that we have to go into. But you're absolutely right. In fact, let's go and start right here on the main menu of Gusto. So when you log in, you'll see a screen that looks somewhat like this. If you go under menu and then click time tracking, it's going to open up the pay period, and the way that Gusto works, it will automatically open up the one that is ready to review and sync. Now, if it doesn't look quite right, you can also go into the drop-down menu here, and you can take a look at all the previous payrolls that are already run, and it also shows you which one is the current active pay period. So in this situation, the one that started today here on April 17th. So we're working, though, April 3rd to the 16th. So right now, we're at the extent of where we need to be for Gusto and looking at the clock situation there. But we're also going to have another window open. Now, currently, we see two internet browsers that are open, one with the Gusto webpage, and the other one is also going to be here with the DJP page. Because what we want to do is we want to see all the shows that occurred within the pay period that is currently on Gusto. Now, this is under a similar screen that we use for TBA auditing. We're going to go into our menu on the left-hand side.
Do you want to switch it so it shows the screens? Or if I need that, just listen to your voice.
Can you clarify, switch what screens?
So what's recording right now is you versus the screens, I think.
It's actually recording the screens as well.
Oh, really?
So right now, the current screen is everything that, all good, all good. But no, excellent. No, it's not just me that's being recorded right now.
I'm like, I can follow the voice.
No. You should be seeing everything that's on there too, as it's currently actively screen sharing right there. Anyway, let's go back to just we're on DJP. We're opening up a normal window. We're gonna use a similar menu that we have used before in the past, and that's for TBA auditing, and that is the event prep screen. So I'm gonna open up the side window here, and I'm gonna click event prep. Now for this one, we just need to open up all the shows that are happening in the range of the current pay period. So as we see on this side, we're April 3rd to the 16th. So I will go ahead and enter those dates. They do need to be those exact dates, no more, no less. We need to make sure that just this pay period is being accounted for. We'll click update. So now we have all the shows that are currently in the system for the pay period that we are looking at, starting with the 3rd, and it's going all the way down to the 16th. You can see it right there on the 16th.
Now, is this something you would do every single week for the previous week?
I wouldn't do it for weekly. I would do it bi-weekly. I would do it every payroll period, every payroll Monday. So what that means is, and maybe if I'm not answering your question right, please feel free to ask a follow-up.
I just realized 3 to 16 is 2 weeks.
That's exactly right. Yep. So we do it bi-weekly. It also gives us, Mondays on every other to kind of get some nice project time. Excellent. Now, one thing that's really important to note about DJP and tracking it this way is that you have to be up to date with what the event looked like once the event completed. Let me give you a good example. Let's say one person on our event was sick the day of. Well, if they're sick the day of, that's unfortunate, and we're probably finding a replacement. Or maybe we're saying they call off at 5 p.m. with a 7 p.m. show, and there's nothing we can do. Sometimes that happens. We don't ever want it to happen, but sometimes it does. Well, what that means is after the show happens or after the call-offs resolve or the replacements are found, we have to make sure that the event that is in DJP is updated. So, hey, Sunny, we had Claire call out. Can you go in and do the show? Yes. So once that happens, we update it in DJP, we send out our ECO. So then when we get to this payroll period, everything is up to date and accurate.
Okay.
So we have what we need to start off. So we're going to go ahead right away and we're going to go into our employees. So at the top here, we have Dimitri Aaron, who's also known as DJ Chosen. Now, certain people get paid in different functions. So first, let's go ahead and see where DJ Chosen is on the event prep. So I sure could do that. That is one option. So we can go down there. I often like to do Control F sometimes to just find his name, but let's go and give this one a try too. So Dimitri Aaron, DJ Chosen, and we'll click update. So we can see that he has one show here on it. You can also achieve the same effect here with the search bar. Honestly, whichever works best for you. Sometimes I like to have all the information, I have to scroll back and forth, but as it stands, this actually does pretty well for us. So we're looking at this event. We know DJ Chosen has this information in the event. So 5 p.m. goes to 10 p.m. And that's on April 15th. So if we look into his time clock on April 15th, well, it looks like there's no hours that were added into that. Now, I was actually on site for this event, so I know he was there. Now, should things work out the way that they should be working, I'm going to open up another page here. I'm going to open up RTH Central. In this situation, we would actually probably track out exactly the individual and make sure that we have the hours logged in somewhere. So just like for any employee, if they end up missing a time clock, the cool thing about Gusto is you can actually add it after the fact on the actual app. Our DJ here, DJ Chosen, is a very unique situation. Now, we always want like the rules and the processes to be followed, but every once in a while, you have an exception to the rule to allow us the space to make sure that people are happy and functioning properly. But in the situation where, say, for example, somebody did not get their times in, we would actually tell them to go and fill out a missed punch form here on RTH Central. Once the missed punch form is filled out with some pretty basic information, so I'll just do an example here. Forgot to clock, entertainment. Just that was an entertainer.
And we asked them to do this, or could we also do it if we wanted it like right away?
We could do it if we wanted to, or I also know DJ Chosen is a little bit of a unique situation, and I'm explaining more in a second, but right now this is like the process that we'd ask anyone to do, anybody.
Okay, perfect.
So we go both in and out. We put our missed punch time. Say it's 1 p.m. And let's say the event ended at 12 a.m., no meal break. And this is just a test for training purpose. So should anyone have that, we put that in, we get it sent along, and it goes out to that individual. Well, not to the individual, but it goes out to us. And we can see right here that gets popped in. So then we will put it in. Now I'll actually either keep them here in the queue or file them away in missed punch here, so that when we get to our actual time where we're doing the payroll, it's right there and ready for us. Now, because DJ Chosen is unique and he only does a few shows for us, and if I were to wait for him to put all this in, it would actually probably delay a lot more of the situation of everyone else getting paid. Now, I was actually on site, I saw him there. And if we go back to the event, we're actually tracking something with DJs and MCs known as a flat rate pay. So some entertainers get paid in an hourly sense. So the amount of hours and minutes that you put in is equal to a per dollar hourly rate. For other entertainers, like specialty entertainers, DJs and MCs, they have what's known as a flat rate. So what that means is they get paid for 10 hours worth of work. If they work under there, they still get that 10-hour. If they go over that 10-hour, let's say it's 11 hours or such, their flat rate gets divided by 10 and converted into an hourly. Let me give you an example. Let's say we have a flat rate entertainer that is making $300 per show. They end up working 11 hours. So they've got that 10 hours in, so they get the 300, but for the last hour, it gets converted to an hourly. So then 300 divided by 10 is 30. So they end up making $330 for that show.
Makes sense.
Now, in sense of Gusto, it doesn't have the way to track that if it's underneath. So say, for example, this event right here, we've got a school event that the startup was at 5, ended at 10, and he was gone by 11. So from 5 p.m. to 11 p.m., that's 6 hours of actual working time. But DJ Chosen is a flat rate performer. So whenever we have a flat rate performer, we actually have to adjust their clocks to reflect that it is a 10-hour flat rate. So let's go and take a look at what that looks like. So for this, we would add hours. Now, if they end at 11 p.m., I'm going back 10 hours in time, and that's 1 p.m. And the end time being.
This is for DJs and MCs or specialty artists.
That's
What
right.
about, like if you hired randomly like a go-go dancer.
Right.
Is that a specialty?
Sometimes they could be, but often those will be subcontractors,
Okay.
and they'll submit a subcontractor invoice form, and then we approve it as appropriate. We'll get a chance to see one of those later on in your training period, Sunny. So it's set like so. One thing that is important for us to note that I'm going to probably have to adjust, and what that it's all about the tracking and the long term of it. And I'm going to submit a note about this in an email that we'll see in a bit. Is that we need to make sure that something is noted here, because he doesn't have an entertainer flat rate roll code in his DJP. So an entertainer is an hourly, training is a training, promotional is like, say, we go to a bridal show. We ask that our people log these appropriately so that at the end of year and periodic times throughout the year, we can see how much we're spending on different parts of our operation. So we're going to definitely need to get this changed. And that is actually something that our hiring manager, HR representative today takes care of. So for now, I'll keep it as entertainer. But then when we get to the email communication between all the staffing departments and accounting, I'm going to add a note to that and probably also send a separate email to today requesting that we get a flat rate. We can also use a form here to communicate that as well. But as a DJ, they should be getting that roll code automatically. But we'll go ahead and save that for now.
This is unrelated, I'm sorry, but it just came up in my head. This weekend, was I supposed to clock in as show pay?
We'll talk about that aside of just as we're kind of making a training video. Okay. If that's okay, just because
that's
I want you to refer to it. And,
okay.
But for show hops, it would be a different situation. Yours is unique. But yeah, we'll get that sorted in a second.
Because I did not clock in as that.
Okay, no worries. Flat rates. I'll add a little note there just so we know. Yeah. Excellent. So 10 hours right there. So chosen, it's his only show here. So we know that he's good to go for his show. Now we'll click approved on this one right here, and we know that he's good to go.
Awesome.
We can go and click to the next person, Aramide. Now under the same idea, here we can adjust to Aramide.
And does it only show our entertainers for our admin? That's
right. So the way that Gusto is created, us as the administrator, it says this is just your team. So we're only going to see entertainers, which is lovely. So it looks like Aramide had nothing on her show. So we can just straight out approve her and continue on forward. Matt Barger. So let's see, we'll do the same thing here.
You can type if you want to. It doesn't bother me.
Oh, it's okay. I'm just getting used to a new method, and it just takes a little bit of a mental what have you. So you had one event here. So let's go and compare his clock hours.
Okay.
Excellent. Looks like he might have made a little note of himself there. Forgot to clock in when he got to the event today. With Gusto, the way that is kind of fluid, as long as it all gets there in the end, I feel pretty relaxed about the whole thing. But let's take a look here. So he got there at 5. I was actually there. I can confirm that. And then we're looking at the end time. So 11:52 p.m. Now, when it comes to us auditing for hourly employees and employees in general, the out time, I'm kind of taking just a little note of each one and just kind of doing a mental note about what that might mean. So for example, Matt Barger here, we asked for any of our retainers to have a 1 hour loadout. So if I'm looking at that, 1 hour after that is about 11:30. It looks like he clocked out about 22 minutes after that 1 hour out. Now I could send a message and say, hey, what's up with the 22 minutes? But I know the scale of the show. I also know that probably Eric and Adam, and then we also asked Lisa to leave a little bit early. I'm not sweating 22 minutes. Now, if it goes outside of 30 or it goes to a 2 hour, that's when I might send a message to them and say, hey, is there a reason why this loadout took that long? Why did we not clock out? Sometimes people forget to clock out when they get home. And that you can kind of also see that and be like, oh, they probably just forgot to clock out and they clocked out when they got home, but then we'd have to readjust that. And we might also look at the other people on this show here and see, did anyone else clock out at this time? And if the answer is yes, that's probably just something about the show in general. This being Shaker Rocks also means it's the first time at our venue. I might give a little bit more of a window. But when it gets to Lily or Keith or Brandon, I'll see what their time was and then kind of cross-reference to it. But it's also under 7 hours. So he got there about 30 minutes late. He did call me, let me know that that did happen at that point. It's all within what we budgeted for the actual event. So
if they didn't clock in, they forgot, and setup time is 3 o'clock, start time is 6:30. Would you have to go to the actual event and see the notes that you put in for that person?
Yeah, that's an absolutely legitimate strategy. So we can work on a shorthand and say, oh, well, we asked for our photo hosts and our party motivators to come in 2 hours prior to. So that would be like 6:30 here, so 4:30. But you're absolutely right. We could click go to events, look under the staff tab, and see what notes that we left in for that. So for example, Matt Barger, we asked him to arrive at 4:30 p.m. We can also, that is also a situation we can flag it and say, hey, were they late? Is this an op log needed? He actually called me around 1 p.m. that day saying, hey, I have a thing. And I was like, okay, that's fine. And then we adjusted on site to have other people help out with that. So it's op loggable if we wanted to, but it's, to me, he also reported he did the things that he needed to. I'm relatively lenient, but I also want to make sure that everything was set up on time, and everything was. So the ends justify the means. This is a situation where the hours sync up. I feel good approving it. If I need to, I can go back and unapprove it and adjust it later on. If I'm finding that other people like Erica or Lily or Keith or Isabel had a clock time that was more like within the hour or something, but 22 minutes, I'm not going to sweat, also because he arrived 30 minutes late. It all kind of adds up to 7 hours that we typically look at. Melissa Barger, same thing, we can keep going through.
Oh, are they siblings?
They're married, actually.
Oh, sorry.
I know, love is great. I love love.
I do too.
Nothing there for Melissa, so we can continue on forward.
What if I were siblings? I'd be like,
yeah, well, all right. This is another good example right here. So we're looking here for Mario. Now, Mario's got a couple things going on with this one, so let's go and open up his profile. All right, so it looks like he has a couple shows here. So he had last Saturday at Tower City. So this was a setup time. The starter was at noon. He did arrive at 10, so that's 2 hours prior to. That means that's good news. 7:08 was his out, so it's just around 1 hour after, of course, walking to your vehicle, clocking out, and then maybe you need a little bit extra, more than an hour. All that is within good margins. This looks like great clock activity right here. So I'm pretty happy with that. The roll code is correct as entertainer. If you ended up clocking under something differently, I might do that. This is a good one to point out too, since we're here, event prep. That's the roll code that we use for our prep team. So the people prepping photo booths and the people that are with our DJ and the general entertainment prep team. So when we get to people like our Johnny's, Molina's, Julie's, we'll make sure that their clocks are under the right job title. So this is good. We'll save that up. And now let's go and scroll on down here. Excellent. So now we've got some more things going on here with the 15th. So this is a good opportunity to talk about out-of-town events. Now, if we look here, this is an out-of-town event that was in Columbus. Now, Columbus is on the edge of our out-of-town areas. For any event in Rock the House to consider to be out of town, it has to be 2 hours from here at the office. Columbus is about 2 hours and give or take 10 minutes. So this show qualifies as an out-of-town rate. We'll talk about the prep of it later on today because we actually have one on Wednesday, and that includes booking hotel, double checking the team screen for vehicle information and such. And for this one, it required a little more work too because we need to make sure we had transportation accommodation for everybody here on the team. But for a Columbus show, we now have to talk about what's known as out-of-town rate. So people that are going out of town, they get paid a little bit differently because they have to take up more time to make their way on the road. And that means that some people give up, additional gigs on a Saturday night or even on a Sunday sometimes. So there's two different versions this happens. Number one, if you're one of our flat rate performers, our DJs or our MCs, their show pay is 1.5 times the amount that they make. Now, we don't have to know the number. All we have to know is that they get 1.5 times their show pay. How does that manifest? Well, the same way we talked about flat rate, 10 hours instead goes to 15. Half of 10 is 5, 5 plus 10, 15. So we would just adjust any DJ or MC to 15 hours for that show. Now, for our other people, our dance captain, party motivators, and additionally, our photo hosts and extra entertainment hosts, theirs is a little bit different. They get compensated for their travel time. So, for example, this show is a good example of us wanting to go to the event and seeing when did it leave from the shop. So it looks like the depart time was 1 p.m. So we want to make sure that 1 p.m. or thereby nearby, I didn't know they arrived about 15 minutes late due to traffic on the highway. So 1:12, that tracks for the time they left the show. Then they got there and it looks like they clocked out at 11:21 p.m. So that is when they are dumped the show, they get to the hotel and they go in their room. That's when they clock out. So they got the hours traveling, they got the hours for load in, show time, load out, and then get to the hotel and put their head on the pillow, clock out. So that all tracks there. Then they also get time for when they drive back to 7777. And this one being a 2-hour drive, this all tracks out for me because it took about 2 hours to get there. Now,
They drove back that night.
they did. That was a whole nother situation about hotels being silly. That's a one and done situation. We don't need to talk too much about that. But we can see from all this clock activity here that we have all of the hours that we need for this to be accurate. We have travel time, we have return time, and we have a clock out when it looks like to be approximately when they were done unloading the show, an hour loadout time, and then about a 15-20 minute drive to the hotel. This is great clock activity looking right here. The only thing I see right here is that it looks like he clocked in at this point, then drove there. But this is just a good what happens when a show goes over like midnight. So they realized that they weren't going to stay there. They then went back home because the hotel messed up a reservation. Then they started driving at 11:23 p.m., got back home, 2:09, clocked back out, and then boom. That's our entirety of the driving and the show.
Awesome.
Now, while we're here, we can also take a moment to do something else that's actually very important that goes with the consistency of our clock activity. And that is some of the extra things that we do for our entertainers, and also some of the other things that go with an out-of-town event. So I'm going to open up this document here. So this is our entertainment incentives program spreadsheet. This includes a lot of things that are involved in any given weekly pulse. So we have our overall performance bump. So when the show goes well and they give us a good review, the lead gets a stipend and they hand out a $25 bonus to someone else on their team. When people get requested, do ceremony sound, but also we have our per diem bump. So a per diem is something that we offer to anyone that's doing an out-of-town show. We'll look more at this in a little bit as me and Sunny are about to go to a meeting. But as you can see at the top there, it says $45 per day. Right now, I'm currently adding a few columns to the right. The work pulse that me and our head of accounting, Roger, has is that he has this document shared. And then when it goes to, hey, I'm putting all this together, he looks at all the information we put in here to award the proper things. So first off, we're going to change the week starting on. So this was the pay period that started on the 3rd. Drag this over here. It's going to copy the date code signature of it. Week starting on the 17th. And we'll just put another one there just for us to track it through. Now we're going to scroll down to our individual's name. If they aren't here because they're a new employee, we can just add a row below and add the name in there. But this is the week starting on, oh, I put the wrong date there. Whoops, we're looking at the 10th. My bad. I'm already in the future. What can I say? I'm a futurist like Tony Stark. So Mario had his show on the 15th. So we can go back to the event. This was Keaton, last name is what we go for. So the Keaton mitzvah. So I'll type in and the date that the event took place on. And that is all we need to do to indicate to our accounting team that they have an additional awardable incentive program or per diem from the show.
Is that when they like do great and they somebody like compliments them?
There's a couple things on the bottom there. So the one that is the compliment thing is the overall performance bump.
Okay.
Then we have the request one, someone that per diem is the out of town. So everyone gets $45 for daily living expenses if you do an out of town event.
Oh, that doesn't include like your hourly.
Yes, this is just, it's part of the out of town situation. So if you go to an out of town event, you get a stipend of $45 per day for normal living expenses. It's not a food cost. It's just sometimes maybe you need new socks because your socks got wet or something. Per diem helps cover that. Other thing too that's important for us to know is looking at this is Mario's role. He was a dancer captain. Now, should they be a dancer captain or they have a request bonus, they're an MC requested, it'll be notated here in DJP what their role was. One of our accountabilities is we make sure that we know that if someone's requested on a show, that's notated by the right title being MC requested, DJ requested. That comes from sales, or also we get other communications for it as well.
Okay, I've seen that.
Exactly. Here for Mario, we gave him the title of dancer captain. We have about 7 of them that can be the dancer captain, the lead of that team. So under dancer captain, we have all the people right now that have it. I'm actually going to add one other person while I'm here. She also is now a dancer captain after completing the things. It was the week starting on 4/10, so we'll put Eden.
So just whenever they're dancer captain, they get this bump.
That's right, which also comes with additional responsibilities and accountability for having that title. We're gonna get that's all that we really need to look at when it comes to Gusto time tracking, and there'll be some more nuances as we go through it. But for anyone watching in the future, that's the repeated process. At this point, we're going through DJP and the events. We're looking at the job titles. We're cross-referencing the times and their clock activity and any missed punch forms to put together the fullness of the payroll for the entertainment team.